Welcome back to the M.I.B. Master Toy Museum. I'll be your curator today. I was hanging out here on a Friday in the museum, just taking it easy, just relaxing. Guys, I've already had my first cup of coffee. And I got to thinking, I had another brainstorm, another fantastic topic of discussion. Guys, you know what time it is. It's coffee time with M.I.B. Today's topic, guys, we're going to be covering collecting versus profit. When does collecting stop and profiting off of one's collection start? It's an interesting topic because there's so many layers to collecting, and why are you collecting? What reasons? Are we buying multiples to open one and keep one for sale or trade? And then there's the layer of the passion of the hobby. And who's doing it for profit? Who's doing it for trade? Who's doing it for collecting? But we kind of want to cover in somewhere in between those lines of the passion. You know, I read a lot of comments in the comment section here at the channel. I talk to a lot of collectors all around the world, and I get a lot of this particular line. Well, I don't do it for monetary value. You know, I do it for the passion. Well, we want to kind of uncover some of those truths, if we can, and shed some light on you know, exactly how passionate are we about our collection, our toy collections. How much do they really mean to us? And is there a dollar value that can separate us from our prized possessions? And I have here today just a few of my my favorites that I would seemingly never part with. Some of these guys are very difficult to find. Some of these guys are very, very common. We're looking at my Romulan Commander. I have a ton of these guys. Yeah, could I sell a few? Could I trade a few? Sure. But I bought them with one thought in mind. Is the fact that I truly love this Romulan Commander figure so much. Migo did a fantastic job on this figure, so I would never part with him. Figures Toy Company's Hawkman is pretty cool. Expensive. Guys, we want your comments. We want your input on this. We're gonna be doing some testing here. I'm gonna test your passion for collecting and your passion for your toy collection, if you will. Well, we might as well just address the elephant that's in the room. Would you, or how much money would you part with your collection for? If somebody offered you, let's say $50,000 for your collection. Now, you guys know how big your collections are. I wouldn't have a clue. Is 50,000 too much? Is it not enough? Or what would you part with? How much money would it take for you to part with your collection for? And guys, let's be honest. It's hard times out here. You know, I've known a few collectors that have sold a few expensive pieces from their collection because of hard times. And their rebuttal to that, their response to that was, listen, the mortgage was due. The car payment was due. Real life was due. And it became more than just a hobby. And so I get that. I absolutely get that. And then you got those collectors that will jump on those other collectors and say, it can't get that hard that you want to sell something that means something that much to you. Why would you do that? You're going to get those type of collectors out there as well. But when does it become more of a profit? You know, the toy companies are, let's just be honest, guys. Let's call it what it is. This is for profit. The toy companies know that their primary targets isn't the kids anymore. The younger demographic stopped being a factor decades ago when the video games came on the scene. The toy companies are targeting the older demographic with the sentimental values in place. They've had these toys when they were kids, like with G.I. Joe. And Hasbro made every effort to try to reach the younger demographic. But their primary money source continued to be the older demographic. Kids of the 60s, kids of the 70s, maybe some kids of the 80s that remembered the 12-inch G.I. Joe figure and that wanted to reconnect with their childhood. So it's the toy companies know precisely where their revenue is going to, where that revenue is going to come from. It's going to come from the older demographic. We know that. But at what point does it become more about profit than collecting? That's what we want to know. Guys, leave your comments in the comment section right underneath this video. Would you sell your collection? For how much? Is there a price limit? Is there a monetary value attached to your collection? Do you plan on passing these collections, toy collections, on to your family members? And why? Collecting versus profit, guys. Collecting versus profit. I know a collector that his entire collection is based primarily on the premise that he's going to sell it off one day. He's buying up all the Migos, the G.I. Joes, anything you name that will potentially have a dollar value. Now, mind you, he's got a little bit of money too. So this guy he's going after vintage G.I. Joes, And it's all with he calls it his retirement fund. His retirement fund. And I said, well, do you enjoy collecting? He's like, no. He's like, I enjoy collecting with the notion that I'm saving for my retirement. That's what I'm doing all this for my retirement. We're talking about a fairly young guy. He's in his early 40s. And he has a collection of nearly 8,000 action figures. Not all mint in box like mine is, but for the most part, he has a lot of mint in box items. Are you collecting just for profit? Can we consider those people that are collecting just for profit collectors? That's debatable. It's a good debate. Some people would say yes. Some people would say no. Where are you on that situation? Are you on the fence? Collecting versus profit. The toy companies are bringing toys out from our past. They are turning them into limited edition chase figures. We covered a video on chase figures. Limited runs, making it impossible to track some of these figures down. But if you do, you have a very rare and desirable figure. A figure that can be easily sold. That's where the eBay and Amazon situation comes in to effect. M.I.B came out nearly a year ago, and a lot of collectors talked about this, how we couldn't find some of these figures in the store, but we could find a ton of these guys on eBay. So you had scalpers buying up a lot of these figures and putting them on their eBay stores for purchase and sale. Were they collectors? Or were they profiteers? Collecting versus profit. Enjoying your collection, guys. Simply enjoying your collection. I get it. We can't take any of this with us when we pass on to that next life. We can't take any of this with us. But my thinking has always been, the reason I started collecting in the first place was just out of pure passion and joy from my childhood, and remembering some of these beautiful figures and toy lines that A, I couldn't afford when I was a kid growing up, and B, I've just always admired and wanted. And now to have it, that's where the collecting part came in, the passion for collecting these beautiful figures. That's why I collect, guys. I don't collect for the monetary value. I don't collect for profit. That's where the museum came in at. That's why I created my museum. Because some of these figures are going to be very difficult to find. I realize that. Very difficult to get. I've been offered money for pretty much every figure up here on the stage. Most of them. We're looking at my deep water rescue G.I. Joe. I've been offered money for this figure. He's hard to find. So with anything hard to find, immediately becomes very desirable in the collecting community. But I've never had the urge to try to sell any of my figures. Same here with the Timeless Collection, Skydive to Danger. I have 2 of these. If I like a figure enough, you know me, guys, I'm going to buy multiples. I've been offered a lot of money for this figure. Guys, it's coffee time with M.I.B. How connected, how in love are you with your collection? Collecting versus profit. Are you collecting just to profit from your collection, or are you collecting out of pure joy? You know, they had collectors, some collectors say they're collecting not for themselves, but for their kids. They're stockpiling these action figures for their kids. So one day their kids can have these collections, these massive, massive collections that could turn into college tuition, things of that nature. Guys, I guess there's no right or wrong. We just want to see where you stand at on the fence of collecting versus profit. You can do anything you want with your collection. This whole coffee time episode is completely devoted to trying to figure out what you think about collecting versus profit. Where are you at with that title? Could you part with? These are the fun things. This is why I enjoy the coffee time episodes so much, the whole segment of Coffee Time with M.I.B, because we could get really down to the grassroots of some of these topics that I couldn't cover in just a standard video. Like Captain Action, playing Manus figure. Mego Werewolf flocked version. The joy of seeing some of these figures again, spending time in my museum, all priceless moments, guys. As I'm sure you have your priceless moments while standing in your collection room after a hard day's work. Nothing seemed to go right for that week, but when you go into your collection room, these beautiful figures are there to greet you and to take you back into another time period of your life, a much simpler time, easier time, a fun time. Something to think on, guys, with a hot cup of coffee. Collecting versus profit. You know the routine, guys. God bless. And keep collecting.